everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Heidi from My Reading Life, and I'm here today to start a reading vlog because it is mid-month book bash time again. Yes, indeed, it is the second weekend of the month, and this is the weekend that we try to squeeze in as much reading as we can to get a jump start on our TBRs. So this is a reading event that takes place every month, as I said, on the second weekend of the month, and it was first developed by Doris over at Aldi Books. And yeah, it's a really fun way to just get a little bit more reading done and to like celebrate reading on every month on the second weekend. So I have a stack of books that I want to work through. I've got 6 books on the go. No, I take that back. I have 7 books on the go. And I think that there's likely only one that I can finish this weekend, but I do want to make progress in all of the rest of them. So let's talk about what's on the agenda. So first of all, I am listening to an audiobook of one of my BookTube prize books. I won't talk about that one. So that one's essentially off the table for this vlog, even though I may listen to it this weekend. The one that I am hoping to complete is a book that's left over from Springathon. Sorry for the glare. This is We Took to the Woods by Louise Dickinson Rich, and this is nonfiction. Takes place in the 1930s about a family that lives in the western Maine woods at the time, was very remote, had no direct roads that were open the year round to the community. There were only 3 or 4 families that lived in the area. And this woman was not originally from the wilderness area of Maine, but she and her family moved there. And this is her account of what it's like to live in the North Maine woods at that time period, like I said, in the 1930s. It is quite funny. I find it to be quite funny. It is very much a picture of what Maine was like in the early part of the 20th century. So enjoying that. I'm about halfway through. So I have about 150 pages left to go. And I would very much like to finish this one this weekend. Now, a buddy read that I am doing with my romance buddy readers is of this Regency romance, A Night to Surrender by Tessa. This is book 1. Let me see. There we go. Book 1 in Spindle Cove series. This is a Regency romance in like the early 1800s. A young woman lives with her father in a coastal village. She evidently seems to be that she takes in like well-bred young women and like tries to help them. And a young man who is recovering from an injury that he received being a soldier on the continent. I believe it's during the Napoleonic Wars. He has been recovering from an injury, and he shows up in this village and has to like put together a militia for the area. So of course, I've only read the first 4 chapters of this book, so I don't really know where it's going to go, but it's quite amusing so far. And I have liked Tessa Dare's books in the past. So I will be reading in this ebook this weekend. Another buddy read that I have going is one that's left over from May as well. This is the book that I chose to read for Mental Health May. And this is a buddy read with Sean from Sean Breathes Books. And it is Committed on Meaning and Mad Women by Suzanne Scanlan. And I would just point out that Sean had an interview with the author on his last Friday Reads a week ago today. I'll try to remember to link it down below. And the interview was so good and really informative about how and why the author wrote this book, which is a memoir of her time when she was college age and she was committed into a mental health institution. She is of an age with me, so this is in the early 1990s, and it really, it is so drawing me in and making me remember what life was like. I was not obviously not obviously, but I never have been institutionalized for mental health issues, but I was in college at the same time, and a lot of the circumstances and situations that she describes are very like reflective of what I lived through. So that is really interesting. She also really brings in a lot of books and reading into this story. Like she was really into reading things to try to help herself understand her own like situation. And so she's making a lot of connections with different books like The Bell Jar and The Yellow Wallpaper and things like that, and like some really interesting analysis of how books and reading influence our lives and the ways that we think about ourselves. So really interesting look at early or healthcare for mental health issues in the 1990s, and also how a person might deal with those issues as it relates to books and literature. So fascinating. I am also working on the last book in the Lord of the Rings series. This is The Return of the King by J.R. Tolkien. I am buddy reading this with Kim from Middle of the Book March and Doris. We've been buddy reading the whole series this year, one book at a time. And I am also listening to this particular installment on audiobook because Kim recommended the books narrated by Andy Serkis, and oh my god, so good on audiobook. I'd highly recommend Lord of the Rings. Anyway, one of my favorite books of all time, and just loving. I like blew through the first 5 chapters, and I'm waiting for Doris and Kim to catch up with me, but I do want to get back into this weekend, probably listen to the audiobook while I do house chores. And then these are like, I have so many buddy reads going per usual. I have this buddy read going. This is nonfiction, Looking for Miss America, A Pageant's 100-Year Quest to Define Womanhood by Margot Mifflin. I'm buddy reading this with Rachel. I first heard about this book from Doris. She read it a couple of years ago and raved about it, and I've been wanting to read it ever since. And so Rachel and I decided to dive in. It is so interesting, and it's written in a very sort of breezy style, like very almost like you're reading a magazine article, but longer. And I'm really enjoying learning about the early history of the Miss America pageant, which I know nothing about, and also how people who ran the pageant tried to make the pageant more relevant to American life and to sort of get it away from just being a leg show, basically just being a swimsuit competition, just being something for the male gaze. But this also delves into the darker history of the Miss America pageant. You know, it's the racism, the prejudices, the people who were allowed to participate and who weren't allowed to participate. So that history is really interesting as well. Just a lot to enjoy in this book, and written in a very open and accessible style. So enjoying that. And then a book that I have not yet started, but I plan to start tomorrow, is a book that I will be buddy reading with Joe Smith, and that is this memoir, Knife, Meditations After an Attempted Murder by Salman Rushdie. So this is Rushdie's latest book. He just published last month, I believe, or just recently, and all about his experiences after having experienced an attack on his life where he lost his eye. And of course, he's been under death threats for decades at this point. I've read a little bit of Rushdie in the past. His memoir, Joseph Anton, or his autobiography, I guess, Joseph Anton, and also some of his fiction. I think one work of fiction by him. I buddy read that with Joe as well. So very interested to get into this. I've heard really good things about it. There was an excellent review of this book on the Book Riot podcast. So excited to start that one. So those are the books that I'm going to be getting into this weekend. I will check in with you when I have some progress to report. In the meantime, I hope you enjoy some scenes from my area over the past several weeks. Hello, friends. It's Monday at noontime. This mid-month book bash has been an absolute epic fail. Nothing that I had planned to do this weekend on Friday when I talked to you last have I done. Everything got changed and rearranged and canceled, and new things got put into place. And so I did get some reading done, but I did not meet any goals. And yeah, it's just the way it works sometimes. So the biggest thing that happened was I knew that I had to go out of town to do some errands and shopping and things in Bangor, and that happened on Saturday. And so that whole day was pretty much killed. And then ended up that our family dog had gotten really sick over the weekend since Friday night, had been unable to get up and had stopped eating and drinking. And so that resulted in a trip to the emergency vet. And the nearest emergency vet to where we live is 2 hours away. So that was Sunday, was driving to the emergency vet and back. Good news is our dog has Lyme disease. I mean, not that that's good, but it's certainly better than the alternatives considering she's a 9-year-old dog. And she's already doing much better. She's on antibiotic for a month and some painkillers for the next few days, just so she can get back up and get around until the antibiotic sort of kicks in. And yeah, it's just really, truly amazing what the medicine has done. I mean, from a dog that had to be picked up to just getting up off our bed like normal, it was really quite amazing. And I will just say, if you have a dog and your dog just all of a sudden stops being able to get up or stops eating and drinking and just like randomly out of the blue, please, please, please take them to the vet and get them checked immediately for Lyme disease, because if it goes untreated for a long time, it can impact their liver. And if it gets to that, not their liver, I'm sorry, their kidneys. And if it gets to that point, then it's almost 100% fatal. So yeah, we were pleased that we got her to the vet pretty quickly, and so far the test of her kidneys shows no damage at all. So she'll be retested in a month, and hopefully, everything will still be all right. So that obviously just derailed my whole reading, my reading plans, but I did get a little bit of reading done. I was able to, so far I've been able to keep up with my buddy read. So I read another section in this piece of nonfiction. This is Committed on Meaning in Mad Women. This is excellent. This is so thought-provoking. If you are at all interested in the topic of women and mental health, this memoir is just so fascinating. Suzanne Scanlan is really bringing forward a lot of ideas that are making me think a great deal about the role of literature and what those of us who consider ourselves readers, how we incorporate what we're reading into other aspects of our life, how women are treated in the mental health field, particularly in the early 90s, which was a time where I'm the same age as this author, so it's a time that I knew quite well. I was in college the same time she was, and I knew people who were undergoing treatment for serious mental health conditions at the time. So yeah, like so much in here to chew on. Really enjoying this book. I also started this memoir, Knife, Meditations After an Attempted Murder by Salman Rushdie, which I'm reading with Joe Smith. I'm reading Committed with Sean Bree's books. And this one, Knife, it's so good so far. So I've read the first 2.5 chapters. It's 8 chapters long. It's a small book, only about 193 pages in this little hardcover. And so, like, if you like Rushdie's other nonfiction, if you've read his essays or his autobiography, Joseph Anton, like, I think you'll like this because his writing style is very striking and unique. His voice is very strong. And he has a similar way of sort of going down these tangents and rabbit holes about cultural issues, like cultural things like movies and music and books, that he goes off on a side note about while he's talking about serious things like being attacked by a person with a knife while he's trying to give a speech. And then the subsequent things that happened to him after that attack. I mean, he almost died. Like, he was like when the people brought him into the hospital, they did not expect him to live. It was a very, very serious attack. I knew it was serious. I mean, I knew he lost his eyesight in one eye, but the other injuries that he sustained from this attack is just incredible. So yeah, so this is so far, first 2.5 chapters, just very engrossing. Just be prepared for tangents, because that's just how he writes. I personally enjoy that. I like his style of writing, but it might be, something that you don't like. But his thoughts about freedom of speech and, the difference between wanting to protect certain groups of people, but also wanting to protect freedom of speech, and how liberal folks think about that and how right-wing folks think about that. I think that's really one of the most interesting parts of this book. So yeah, lots to chew on here as well. The other buddy read right now is Looking for Miss America, A Pageant's 100-Year Quest to Define Womanhood by Margot Mifflin. This is a buddy read with Rachel, and I just finished chapter 5. There are 9 chapters, so I'm on page 150. This is like a 300-page book, a little bit less than 300 pages with the notes taken out. And this is also quite interesting. This is a breezier style, more like a magazine article or something like that, all about the history of the Miss America pageant, which everybody mixes up with the Miss USA pageant. They're very different. Miss America pageant was created first, and then Miss USA was created after it was deemed by one of the early sponsors that the Miss America pageant wasn't sexy enough. Like, the women had balked at some of the swimsuit stuff, and one of the swimsuit sponsors was like, well, then we're not going to sponsor you anymore. And then someone came up with the idea, well, you should have your own pageant that's sexier, and so they did. And that pageant, the USA pageant, is the one that Donald Trump was associated with. Miss America, he was not associated with. So this is so interesting, thinking about the conflict between providing opportunity for girls and women in a time period where there weren't many opportunities for financial independence for women, and like exploiting them for the male gaze, and the conflict between those two things. Also talks about the fact that Miss America was for many, 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 many long years whites only activity. Like, they specifically disallowed minority women, particularly Black women, from participating right up well into the civil rights era. I think the first Black participant in Miss America happened in 1970. So, like, and this pageant started in the 1920s. So, like, a long, long time period of discrimination and prejudice. So that's all very interesting. And just the different individual Miss Americas, the ones that won, like, their individual stories are so fascinating. Like, really a fun read and super interesting if you like reading about feminist issues and women's history and things like that. I think this is really great. And then another piece of nonfiction, We Took to the Woods, which is my leftover springathon read that I was hoping to finish this weekend. I did not finish this weekend. I still have 100 pages left to read. I am still enjoying it. I just didn't have time. I just ran out of time, and I had to keep up with my buddy reads first as a priority. So this one remains on the currently reading list. I did read a couple of chapters in my romance, and I read a couple of chapters of The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, the one that I'm on, but that was it, because everything else just interfered. So not a super successful mid-month book bash, but on the other hand, like, I did read some, and on the other hand, my dog has a disease that is treatable and is not going to die, at least immediately. So these are all good things, right? I hope you're all doing well, and I hope you found a lot of time to read during mid-month book bash, and I will talk to you later.